this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the first time, children are offered COVID-19 vaccinations. The Moscow Circus includes a pair of stunt motorcycle riders, and the intended sale of Tairi Gorge Railway carriages surprises some. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. Monday was the first day children aged between 5 and 11 years old could receive a COVID-19 vaccine. Not every location is able to offer the children's doses yet, but those running the rollout in the south said parents are having real conversations with their children about being vaccinated.
The moment of truth and a well-deserved cuddle from mum, followed by a high five from the lady doing the injecting. 6-year-old Emma O'Brien is among the first children between 5 and 11 years old to receive the child's dose of a COVID-19 vaccine in Dunedin. Sharing their child's vaccine story, Signe Stanbridge and her husband are both health professionals who say they discussed being vaccinated with their daughter.
So we feel comfortable with the knowledge and the information that we have to make an informed choice for Emma, and we talked to Emma about getting vaccinated to protect herself but also protect the vulnerable people in our lives and in our communities.
Emma was happy to be one of the first and plans to celebrate with a friend later in the week.
So we're probably just going to go over to her house on Thursday and I'll give her the present, and then we might have a cake or something, and probably.
A cake?
Yeah, probably. If you think to bake one.
At 10 micrograms per shot, the child's mRNA vaccine is a third of the adult strength dose. The clinical coordinator at the COVID vaccination centre in Dunedin's Meridian Mall says New Zealand waited longer than some other countries to make sure the child's vaccine would be safe for tamariki.
We waited to hear good data. We wanted to know our children would be safe having the vaccine, and that's what we've waited for, and that's what we've got. Pfizer's developed a good vaccine, and New Zealand's ready for our children to be protected.
Rather than needing to book in their child's vaccination, parents and caregivers are now able to walk into centres with their children. Barr says some of the youngsters are apprehensive, but understand exactly why they are there. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The Great Moscow Circus has hit Dunedin, aiming to wow locals with an acrobatic and adrenaline-filled show. The circus attracts all sorts of thrill-seeking performers, and for one stunt motorcyclist, the circus is all they know.
For performer Ivan D'Souza, the circus is in his blood. The 30-year-old is the son of 2 circus performers and has spent most of his life either entertaining crowds or being in them. He's tackled a variety of performing roles as part of the Great Moscow Circus, but Dunedinites will get to see D'Souza riding his motorbike in the popular stunt, the Splitting Globe of Death.
It's pretty much like a metal sphere, right? And it kind of splits in half. So most of the globes are they're like just a solid globe, but this one we split in half, like to make it everything like more fun for us.
The Globe of Death attracts a crowd no matter which country the circus visits, and D'Souza loves it in spite of the danger.
Oh, anything can go wrong. Like bike can go wrong. Like if you get a flat tire, it's a certain crash. Yeah. Forks can that happened to us before. Like the fork seal can pop, and then it goes oil everywhere, and there's nothing we can do. Like you just crash straight away.
But after a life around the circus, he can't imagine doing anything else.
I had like a year living in a town, and that was not for me. Like I just couldn't do it. Like I'm used to this. Every, let's say 2-3 weeks, pack everything down, move to the next town, set everything up again.
The action gets underway under the Great Moscow Circus's big top from Wednesday night until the end of January. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Dunedin Railways has announced it's putting surplus rolling stock for sale, insisting it won't affect any further business model. However, that claim is strongly disputed by local rail experts and has concerned some city councillors.
Taking stock of rolling stock. Dunedin Railways is planning to sell 6 former NZ rail carriages, along with 2 locomotives, a generator and guards van, and the bodies of 5 former NZ rail carriages. The announcement late yesterday surprised the Otago Excursion Train Trust. It's asking the council-owned company to halt the sale of the heritage assets, particularly as they weren't consulted about the proposal.
No, not at all. Not at all about it. We were led to believe after a motion that was made at a meeting, a city council meeting, that the assets would go into hibernation and be maintained until a decision was made by the council itself on the future of the railway.
The Otago Excursion Train Trust has penned a letter to Keith Cooper, Mayor Aaron Hawkins and Dunedin City Councillors, claiming there are many inaccuracies in Dunedin Railway's proposal.
The carriages currently are fit for purpose, but they are uncertified for the main line, and that's because of Dunedin Holdings Venue's business plan on how they're running the trains over the mothball.
Dunedin City Councillor Sophie Barker has been supporting the team, advocating for continued rail travel around Greater Dunedin. She says she was blindsided by the proposal.
Yeah, I was really shocked to get the news yesterday that various items of the trains are up for sale. We haven't made a decision about what we're going to do with the train going forward. We want to save it, save the assets. These train carriages are worked on by many volunteers over many hours. Public money was raised for them. I think we need to be very, very careful about what we do with them in the future.
Dunedin City Holdings' plan to sell the publicly bought rail assets was revealed yesterday afternoon. Barker says councillors were told only minutes before the media release went out.
But we've been in the background, we've been waiting on work to come from council. We've been waiting on Enterprises Dunedin destination plan, which has taken a long time to come to fruition.
She wants the issue discussed at the next Dunedin City Council meeting in late January. Expressions of interest currently close with Dunedin Railways on the 4th of February, with successful bidders having until the end of that month to collect the assets. The chairman of Dunedin Railways, Keith Cooper, told the South Today he was unavailable for comment. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Residential security cameras have been known to capture all manner of unusual things over the years. But a Karatani resident recently captured an unusual intruder on camera on his home security. John Molyneux's outdoor security camera caught this large visitor waltzing up his driveway in the small seaside settlement. He was working upstairs at the time but knew something was up when his dog started barking a warning. As the roughly 7-year-old sea lion lumbered up the drive, Molyneux made sure his trusty hound got out of harm's way. He says the large animal checked out his courgettes before making its way back across the street to the sea. The Department of Conservation recommends people always give wildlife their space. The Sea Lion Trust says there are about 10,000 sea lions in the general population, with around 350 residents living on the mainland year-round. Coast Guard Dunedin has welcomed a new addition to its fleet with the former America's Cup chase boat, making a 5-day journey south from Wellington. The new addition to the Southern Coast Guard fleet is bigger and more powerful, helping improve the local response.
Showing its speed on Otago Harbour, the 12.5 metre Moana rescue boat is bigger, better and more powerful than its predecessor, and has come a long way from the original reason it was built.
It's a boat that they built for the America's Cup last year, all funded by Lotto, and it was built for New Zealand Coast Guard specifications.
Coast Guard Dunedin President John Campbell was one of 2 skippers who brought the A36 Protector boat down, and says the new vessel represents a step up for Dunedin's Coast Guard.
It's quite a bit larger, both in beam and in length, which is really it makes it more user-friendly out at the open sea.
The upgraded vessel is fully equipped with new features, including an infrared camera for thermal imaging. Coast Guard Dunedin currently operates from the south of Tidy Mouth to Shag Point. The new vessel could help the team to respond to rescues as far north as the Waitaki River mouth.
The speed it can go, it's got a larger range, it can virtually go 300 nautical miles, so the range is incredible.
Moana Rescue is one of 26 new Coast Guard vessels from a partnership between Coast Guard, Lotto New Zealand and Emirates Team New Zealand. They were built using a $9.6 million lottery grant for use at the 36th America's Cup as support vessels and chase boats. Coast Guard New Zealand has spent $35,000 refitting its new boat, ready for rescue work in the local community. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. Unusual pets went on display in Dunedin, and a 17-year-old gamer does well in his first car race in Cromwell. Welcome back. Sharp claws and a long blue tongue aren't the usual attributes pet owners are looking for. But plenty of Dunedinites flocked to the first ever Reptile and Aquatic Expo last weekend to see if the scaly creatures were for them.
7-year-old James Purvis getting attached to his new friend Wybie. Purvis was among the crowd who attended Dunedin's first Reptile and Aquatic Expo to learn about the cold-blooded creatures. The expo was held in Forester Park with organiser Amelia Seals keen to showcase why the animals make good pets.
I actually rescue axolotls and reptiles, and I just want people to know more about their care, and yeah, it's just really rare for people to know more about reptiles and stuff, so just wanted people to engage and learn about them.
While the animals can be rewarding as pets, Seals admits people should carefully consider the commitment it takes to own one. Reptiles and amphibians often live for decades, and turtles are even likely to outlive their owner.
We need to have some thought before purchasing any of these animals, and have a setup ready and make sure that you actually want to commit to them.
Genuinely a pet for life. And the success of the first expo has encouraged organisers to look at making it an annual event. In Dunedin, the South today.
Defending champion of the Kepler Challenge, Daniel Jones, had the pace to win his 4th consecutive title over last weekend. The gruelling mountain run event was delayed from last December, with summer conditions producing a stunning race day near Te Anau.
Usually held in early December, the 2021 Kepler Challenge finally hit the trails over the weekend. Hot summer conditions in Te Anau ramped up the pressure for the field of runners after a couple of years of cold and wet race conditions. The course suiting the racing style of trail running star Ruth Croft, who overcame the heat to win the women's title.
I definitely prefer the undulating and runnable parts, so that's pretty much the whole course. It's not technical or anything. I just didn't really have the legs in the last 15k.
The full 60-kilometre Kepler track loop challenged defending men's champion Daniel Jones. He says he loves running in the heat and was just pleased to be back out competing, eventually winning the event 19 minutes ahead of his nearest rival.
Yeah, unbelievably stoked. That feels like a long time coming with all the postponements and for all the races, so it's just great to be able to come here to Te Anau and race hard.
The win was Jones's 4th title in a row, and although he had his eye initially on the race record, he knew he was 5 to 6 minutes off that target at each checkpoint.
I was gunning it, but in the end I was just making sure no one was breathing down my neck basically, and having a bit of a turnaround at some of the longest straights that you see in the bush and making sure no one was sneaking up on me because you just had no idea up there.
But he's definitely got a 5th title in his sights now, and possibly a closer focus on that race record. In Te Anau, the South today.
Hoo Grubs could be a prime source of protein for New Zealanders wanting an environmentally conscious diet. That's according to new research from the University of Otago, which has delved into the larvae's nutritional value.
They may not look appetising, but Hoo Grubs could be the key to helping people reduce their meat consumption. That's the message from new Otago University research, which looked into the amount of protein the bugs contain.
They have good nutritional profile, and they should be consumed as a balanced diet, as a part of a balanced diet.
With a protein content ranging from 26 to 30%, Hoo Grubs have a higher amount of protein compared to traditional sources like beef, which is usually around 21%. Researchers say a person weighing 60 kilograms would need to eat 75 Hoo Grubs to meet the daily protein requirement, which could also be sourced from 230 grams of beef. And while eating that many grubs might put some people off, it could be the answer for those wanting an environmentally conscious diet.
Oh, definitely, they should be trying them, and they also should be thinking about not the icky factor, but how they are really impacting the environment by eating grubs instead of the conventional protein sources.
The next step is more research around easily turning the grubs into powder form, making it easier for consumers by turning it into pasta, breads and muffins. In Dunedin, the South Today.
For parents of teenagers who despair over the time their kids spend in the virtual world, Hugo Allen is proof that time isn't necessarily wasted. The Queenstown 17-year-old is a rarity in motorsport, speeding into the racing world through virtual racing.
Following in his father's tyre marks, Queenstown 17-year-old Hugo Allen first entered the world of simulated car racing when he was 13. 4 years on, he's changing gears to take over where his father Ross Allen left off.
Well, I started in sim racing. My dad obviously used to race in Porsches, so the connection was already there, and it wasn't a case of him pushing me into anything, but I started in the sim, like I said, and it sort of went from there.
His dad raced a Porsche GT3 on the Pro-Am circuit, so Hugo grew up with a connection to racing. But despite his virtual skills, Hugo initially wasn't sure if he could swap the simulation for the real thing.
I pushed really hard to get really fast in the sim, and honestly when I started I didn't believe that I could make the transition into a real car.
He says a lot of drivers typically come through the go-kart racing circuit. For his own transition coming through simulated racing, he found real-life car controls a little deceptive.
It was quite tricky because initially I thought I was going like really fast, but I looked at the lap time and I was sort of 5 seconds slower than what I should have been doing. But then we sort of built on it and just got chipped away at little things, got rid of some sim racing habits.
Hugo Allen hit the track over the weekend in the Motorsport NZ Premier Championship at Highlands Motorsport Park near Cromwell. Starting in 7th position, he finished 6th in his first race for his best finish of the day, and enjoying the challenge of driving in the real world. In Cromwell, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. One entrant in this year's Coast to Coast will compete with equipment from 40 years ago, and a ram auction in Gore attracts buyers from across the country. Welcome back. A Lake Hawea man is planning to compete in this year's Coast to Coast race using equipment and clothes dating back to the race's inaugural event 40 years ago. Matty Graham has managed to source a bike, a kayak and even running shoes that are authentic to the early 80s.
35-year-old multi-sport coach Matty Graham is planning to compete in this year's Coast to Coast multi-sport race. But he'll look a little bit different from some of his sponsored rivals, kitted out like the very first competitors in the long-running adventure race. The Lake Hawea athlete is doing it to celebrate the event's 40th anniversary, even finding this old 10-speed bicycle from the era.
It's very authentic in terms of being what it was in 1983. It's fully steel, so there's no carbon fibre or even aluminium on this. It's all steel. Friction shifters down here compared to the ones that are up here now, or even electronic shifters.
The first event saw just 25 hardy souls taking part in the gruelling 250-kilometre challenge crossing the South Island. The course includes 70 kilometres down to Waimakariri River, and Graham has also sourced a kayak that's authentic to 40 years ago.
It is about twice as wide and half as long as a lot of the kayaks these days. No rudder on it either, which is every kayak now has a rudder on it for multi-sport.
And he's expecting the lack of a foot-controlled rudder to add to his challenges during the race.
It paddles a bit like a bathtub. It goes really good when you're in deep water, deep flowing water, but as soon as it's flat and you've got to keep it going in a straight line, it's not the best.
One of the items he was most concerned about locating was a pair of authentic 80s running shoes, but he's discovered New Balance are putting out a retro version from that era.
So they're pretty basic. These are the actual casual shoes now. I've taken them through Goat Pass once. They don't have much grip on them, so they stick to the boulders pretty well. But all in all, I was expecting them to be a lot worse than they actually are. They're not too bad.
This year's Coast to Coast is scheduled for mid-February, with Central Otago multisport pioneers Joe Sheriff and Steve Gurney also planning to take part. In Lake Hawea, the South Today.
Runners were put through their paces over last weekend in a race against the famous Kingston Flyer train. It's been 8 years since Kingston last hosted the race, the train event, with plenty of locals turning out to test their mettle.
Arriving into Kingston for the first time in 8 years, the Kingston Flyer was back chugging along the line between Kingston and Fairlight over the weekend, with local runners keeping pace alongside. Kingston's Race the Train event was last held in 2013 and sees competitors trying to outrun the vintage steam locomotive.
It was great. I mean, it would be nice to have had a few more from travelling further afield, but you know, the world we're living in at the moment, it kind of like counts for that as such. But you know, it was great. You know, we did have people, you know, travel a reasonable distance to come today to be part of the event. So, hey, you know what? It's been great. We've had a good turnout, and yeah, it can only be a big plus for next year.
About a quarter of the competitors managed to get their head down and get their weary legs across the finish line before the train arrived.
Yeah, it was quite a hard case, yeah, but awesome event, and yeah, it was good to see it coming in and everyone finishing across the line.
The majority of runners were unable to beat the steam train, but still enjoyed the day despite the challenge.
I felt as if the whole thing was uphill, apart from the last little bit, and the headwind was terrible. But yeah, it was good fun though.
The successful turnout for the refreshed event means the unique race is expected to be back on the calendar for next year. In Kingston, the South Today.
Art from across Central Otago went on display to the public over last weekend in an outdoor setting. The Art in the Packing Shed event allows people to view and buy creative work in a cafe environment.
With Central Otago temperatures soaring over the weekend, it was perfect timing for an outdoor art event. The third annual Art in the Packhouse Day in Alexandra is an open-air art exhibition held in the back garden of the Packing Shed Cafe.
I guess we just decided it'd be nice to have combined with this nice, area here and bring all the artists together and combine it with food and wine and music.
Artists were on hand to sell their works and demonstrate their crafts. These miniature stone houses were made by Beryl Marshall, using rocks from her Middlemarch backyard.
I'm making a replica of a gold miner's cottage based on my great-grandparents' cottage at Kokona, out of the schist rock.
A lot of the moulding on these more elaborate pieces here is referencing to kind of architectural plasterwork in old Victorian houses.
The day celebrates both creative professionals and hobbyists from the wider Central Otago region.
We have a lot of people that only like knitting. We have a lot of people that like spinning. Some people do some beautiful weaving, which we haven't got here any today. And we also dabble in a little bit of felting.
While numbers were down due to COVID-19, the Central Otago Art Society was still happy with the day, with the venue proving popular for art lovers. In Alexandra, the South Today.
And finally, some of Southland's top rams went under the hammer for thousands of dollars on Tuesday at the annual ram sale in Gore. The top price of the day went to a Texel ram, but it was a prized Perrindale that attracted the attention of a North Island farmer.
Going under the hammer for thousands of dollars. About 150 rams were auctioned at the annual Perrindale and Cheviot Two-Tooth Ram Fair at the Gore Showgrounds on Tuesday. A top price for a Perrindale of $15,500 went to this ram, bought by John Henriksen from Pongaroa, south of Hastings.
I thought he was the best. It was either him or one of the others from that stable, sort of, and which was actually the other one was the People's Choice one, and but I decided to go on this one.
The ram was bred by Annabelle Tripp of Snowdon Station in Canterbury, who also sold two other rams for $9,500 and $12,000.
Well, I guess
On the day, people are looking for specific things for their stud, and obviously our rams suited what they required. Obviously we put a lot of time and effort into breeding them, so I guess we're just really happy that people like what we're breeding.
Tripp has won many awards for her Perrindale and Suffolk sheep studs and says the ram auction in Gore is a highlight of her year.
We love coming down here. It's a great place to showcase the Perrindale breed, and there were some really good sheep here today, so it's a great way to market our sheep, and also everyone supports each other at the sale, so it's a really good sale.
A Texel ram from Riverton sold for even more at the same auction, fetching $20,000. In Gore, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Like and subscribe to be notified of Southern news as it happens. Ka kite anō.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.